Welcome to the AgEmerge podcast, brought to you by Ag Solutions Network. Your farming challenges are unique, so your practices should be too. We're here to share emerging ideas, build connections, and provoke conversation.
Get ready to improve your soil, your crops, your livestock, and your family's livelihood. I'm your producer, Kim Chase.
And I'm your host, Monty Bottens. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us. Today we welcome Doniga Markegard, a wildlife tracker, regenerative rancher, speaker, and author. Doniga and Monte have a wonderful conversation discussing the methods Doniga and her family are using to graze their animals, how they observe and interact with nature to lead towards a more biodiverse and balanced ecosystem, and they're seeing incredible results. Along with her husband and 4 children, Doniga owns and operates Markegard Family Grass-Fed, raising grass-fed beef, lamb, pastured pork, and chicken, supplying the Bay Area with local, nutrient-dense food. The family ranch leases land throughout the Bay Area, spanning over 11,000 acres. It's such a great conversation, so let's jump right in.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the AgEmerge podcast. I'm blessed to be joined by Doniga Markegard. Welcome. How are you doing this morning?
Great to be on.
Well, Doniga is located in California, and she's a couple hours behind us, so it's a little bit early for her, and she's already been out and checked the herds. So, how's things going out there right now?
Oh gosh, we're having a great season. We've already gotten a couple inches of rain which for Northern California this time of year is pretty good. And so yeah, everybody's doing good and healthy, and it's just beautiful. The grass is green, so no complaints over here.
Yeah, we're recording this right at the end of November, 1st of December. So that it is odd to have rain this early in California and do a lot of work with seasonal grasses there. So had a big grazing season this last year, right? Because of all the rains, and now it's starting early for this year.
Yeah, it was great. It sort of finally ended this historic drought that we've been having. So it was a big celebration for all of us. So it seems like lately, though, things come in extremes. So we're kind of bracing ourselves for another winter of the thing that because I've been ranching out here for close to 20 years. My husband a lot longer because he grew up ranching in Northern California. And I never remember these high winds that we've been having. And so that's the one thing that I'm not quite looking forward to, is sort of like 100-mile-an-hour winds that just blows down all the trees on the fence lines. And so yeah, we had some of those last year. So yeah, we're just kind of trying to get ready and resilient for anything that might come, because we really can't predict anything.
That's right. Well, I've spoiled a little bit of your story by jumping right in, so I'm going to take a break now and just have us tell your story, Doniga, how you got started. And it's really neat how you got started in the grass-fed cattle business and where that has brought you to, and talk about your books and all the people who you've educated around the world, and kind of why you've been inspired to do what you do.
Yeah, so I grew up in a rural area in Western Washington, and my family was more a homesteader, and we were surrounded by mostly timber and some farming. And I just grew up with a love for the wilderness and the rivers, and exploring on horseback, and until I had to come home because it was too dark to see. So I really had a idyllic childhood, which looking back, it's so rare that kids have that freedom anymore. And so, it's just, I always talk about with my kids, because they're teenagers now, just how different their generation and the next generation is from me. And they see it too, because they were raised very much as feral children out on the ranch, and running around, barefoot or bareback. And so when I got into school, like middle school was a big turning point for me. I just felt like I was boxed, and I didn't fit in, which I think is pretty common for kids in a public school setting. And I wanted something more. So I was a teenage runaway, and I sort of saw kind of, I don't know, I guess what you might say the dark side, and what sort of destruction was out there in the cities, with people, had some experiences as a teenage girl that, I never would wish on anybody else. And also just sort of, it wasn't my Western Washington wilderness, basically traveling around the country and seeing, vast areas being tilled and aerial sprayed, and not much habitat, not much wildlife. And so I ended up back in my hometown, and through I would have to say synchronicity, because it was a Maori elder basically looked at me, and it was at that time where I was really rebellious, and he looked me in the eye and said, "Doniga, you are headed for danger if you continue your path. And what you really need is to connect with nature and to find yourself through that immersion in nature." And so that's what I did. I immersed in a school called the Wilderness Awareness School, and I learned wildlife tracking. I learned wilderness survival. I learned the language of the birds, and I loved it. I thrived in that setting, and so that's sort of what brought me to a deeper vision and values of what can I do? What is my particular role? Which is different from anyone else. Like, we're all very unique creatures, and we all have a role to play. And so that's what led me to learning about agriculture and learning about holistic management. And then again, through another synchronicity, brought me down to California. And I talk about it in my book, but it was really the mountain lions that brought my husband Eric and I together. And so we, long story short, he was managing ranches for musician Neil Young, and he caught one of my friends trespassing, and sort of the rest is history. And so that's when we started ranching together, and he had already been leasing other ranches on his own. And we took a deep dive into direct market grass-fed, and that was in 2005. So when not many people were talking about grass-fed, and it was sort of like, you either ate beef or you thought beef was the devil, basically, and there was no in between. So we were kind of looking for that, that in between market of, hey, you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing. Like, you can still eat meat, and it can still be good for the planet and good for your health and your family. So that's really, we started with a small group of moms. It always starts with the moms. And from the Weston A. Price chapter, and they were the only ones who knew about grass-fed beef. And so they would buy a half a cow, a whole cow, and we sort of built from there.
Wow. So talk to us a little bit about that overnight success now 18 years later, right? Of the grass-fed business. Are you marketing everything yourself that you raise?
We are. And that's sort of one of the things that as we expand, because now we're on, one of the ranches is seasonal, but, on the peak time of year, we're on about 15,000 acres of grassland spread out on, mainly 6 different large ranches in spread out on 3 different counties. So so it's a lot. We have a great team. We have a great team both on the livestock and on the marketing end. So I definitely give them credit and lean on them because with the drought and then the sort of harsh, a harsh climate that we're seeing now, I kind of got burnt out on it. I mean, after you're doing it day in and day out, 18 years, it's rough. So I found that for me and for my own mental and physical and spiritual health, that I really needed to sort of take a little step back and let others really move the business forward. So, my husband and our main ranch hand, Sue, are doing a lot. And, I love going up to some of the most remote places where there's no cell reception. So it's a little secret, I have here that, oh yeah, you can't reach me. There's no cell reception. I'm just going to be out, taking a walk and enjoying the sunset over the Pacific. So, so I still do a lot with the cattle, but I've really stepped back from sort of the sales and marketing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. But on your family's operation, if you're grazing 15,000 acres, you're direct marketing more than 10 animals a year, aren't you?
Oh yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
lot of
Oh
work.
my gosh.
How many do you finish in a year's time?
Yeah, I mean, you should see our freezers right now. Not only our freezers, but our butcher, like, they love us because we fill half of their, big warehouse this time of year because we only harvest well, it just depends on the season. We either start in May or June and we go until about October. We've played around with different things like harvesting more intensely in the summer. But we've tried to spread it out a little bit more. And now we're sort of on like this 6-month, 7-month harvesting. And yeah, I mean, with everything, it can be close to like, finishing 300, but we're doing everything. So we have all classes of cattle. We don't buy in any stockers. We do sell some live animals like breeding heifers and things like that. But yeah, that's, when you add all that up in the pounds and the boxes to forklift and lift, it's a lot of moving parts.
Right. And for other people to understand your context a little more, I alluded to it earlier, but you're on the coastal hills around the Bay Area, and those grasses are all seasonal grasses. They're not, if I understand, they're not perennials. They're annual grasses that reseed themselves, kind of broadly.
We have, it's majority annual grasslands, but we do have perennials that we really,
Good.
yeah, we do. We have native bunch grasses on the coastal prairie.
Awesome.
And that's one of the things that I feel is our niche, is that all of our ranches have that coastal influence. So we do get the coastal fog, the cooler summers, and we do have a pretty high percentage of perennials. Like one of the ranches has 13% of the native California oak grass. That's just one of the perennials, and we have the purple needle grass. So there definitely are some, and there's a lot of different. It's the most biodiverse grassland type in all of North America. So there is a lot of different species out there, that as long as we really are thoughtful and manage our grazing, then we are gonna be able to cut down on our supplements and graze year round, and the cattle are going to be getting something from the forage all year. And I was very humbled this last year with the weather that we were having with the cold and the wet. Wet is one thing, but when it's just cold, really cold and wet, that's not usual for us. And then just trying to figure out, like, hey, how many animals can this ranch really sustain and meet all the goals of our own operation, our bottom line, and also all of the ranches that we lease have conservation goals. So we're always sort of balancing those as well, and always learning from nature.
So what's that like trying to explain to the general public, right? And I would imagine the landowners too have that same cows are potentially evil viewpoint, to understand that when we reintroduce grazing ruminants and manage them in a way that mimics nature, you're actually doing the best thing possible to restore the ecosystem to what would have been a pre Spanish settlement type of environment. What is that process like as you're educating the people that you're interacting with on that?
Yeah, I mean, over the last 18 years, it's looked very different. And our home ranch is in Half Moon Bay, so we're right across the hill from Silicon Valley. And so that really adds a whole different dynamic. And especially recently, because there's been a big push for cellular agriculture. And really the marketing and the messaging of that is, let's get rid of all livestock. And that's really coming up from the top of this, from these founders of these companies that have a very strong voice. And so I think now there's more conversations about, hey, we don't necessarily need to just is all or nothing. We can figure out different solutions. I certainly personally would never take a bite of something that was grown in a lab and has ingredients that I can't pronounce, and also is grown on a medium that is coming from an extractive industrial agriculture source that is, I would say much, much, much more harmful in terms of carbon footprint than grass-fed cattle, for sure. So I think that it's really where it's gone is and where I like to take the conversation is to science. My family and I were big believers of data and science, and yeah, all scientists don't agree with each other, but that's what makes us all grow and makes us all learn, is having these kinds of conversations. So we have a pretty robust partnership with a science group called Point Blue Conservation Science. And they're a big group of researchers. They do the California Rangeland Monitoring Network, and they work closely with the National Audubon, which is a pretty big nonprofit here in the U.S. for birds. And so we work with those two organizations, and they do a lot of vegetation management, collect data on birds, and then also soils. And I think mainly what piques people's interest now, it used to be that, we were looking at it in terms of human health more. And now we're looking at it in terms of planetary health, and how can the methods that we're using to graze our animals and to observe and interact with nature to lead towards a more biodiverse and balanced ecosystem. We're seeing incredible results with that. And since we've been working with these researchers for going on 10 years, we're seeing that over time, our perennial native bunch grasses percentage is on the rise. Our bird populations are thriving, our grassland birds, where in other parts of the state, where there's more till agriculture, they're nearly non-existent. So there's threatened and endangered species that have homes on these cattle ranches. There are incredible amounts of wildflowers. I mean, it was just incredible this year. And there's carbon being sequestered in the soil in large amounts. One of the ranches that we lease, the increase was 12% in a 3-year period. We test every 3 years, so a 12% increase in soil organic matter, soil carbon in that 3-year period, and that's huge. And people really pay attention to that, especially as carbon credits are becoming monetized, and there's a lot of conversation about that. And also people just, they see it, and they're impacted by climate change. And so they're motivated to support solutions.
Well, I think your use of the word cellular agriculture is very generous. Uh, here in the middle of the United States, we call it lab meat. But anyway, you didn't say that, but I thought that was.
Oh no, that's yeah. Yep.
But I think it's for everyone listening, it's important to recognize that Doniga is really at ground zero, like you said, just across the hills from Silicon Valley and the Bay Area there, of future trends, right? And there's a tremendous amount of capital investment that has gone into these cellular agriculture type of startups. So they're here to stay. It's a matter of how much market penetration they'll get, right? But I thought it was really interesting what you're saying is grass-fed beef. Why do people pay more for grass-fed beef versus conventional beef, grain-fed beef? It was mainly for human health. And now you're seeing that more and more emphasis on planetary health. So, the trends start at the coast, right? And they work their way to the middle. I think we'll see that over the next 5 years. And I think that's important for everybody to know and start to document what you're doing, right? I mean, people need to benchmark where they're at, and whether they're working with, the Point and Blue Conservation, I assume that's somewhat of a localized or regional group. You need to partner up with somebody there, and Audubon Society's got it in most states except for, of course, Illinois, where I'm trying to get Audubon certified, but they're like, oh, we don't have agronomists to do it for you. Cows aren't supposed to be on pasture here, I guess. So anyway, would you recommend people really need to take a dive and quantify where they're at and start benchmarking these things, whether they're in a agricultural setting or in a grazing setting? It's just good to know where you're at so you can benchmark that for future use.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, if you love something, then measure it. Somebody told me that yesterday. And so I think that we do love what we do. We love our lifestyle. We love our animals. We love what we've brought, like the service that we've brought to our bioregion, that people can have access to healthy protein right from their local region, and that's really important, and that's really the basis of why we do what we do. And so I see the only way for this to go on to the next generation is if we sort of, bring everybody along with us. So, and it's not us versus them kind of thing. It's like, I sit right at the table with the chief scientist of Impossible Foods, right? And have a conversation and share a meal. And I do a lot of work in tech. I'm part of a a food lab with Google, with all of sort of global food leaders. And I've, presented at Tesla. And so I go right in there and have one-on-one conversations, because at the end of the day, we have more in common than what we might first think. And I feel like there's opportunities in every single sector to collaborate, and there's so much interest right now in regenerative agriculture. I kind of haven't even used that term yet, but some people you interview, they would have used that term 100 times by now, but it's just sort of like, it's the newest term, and it's really taking a lot of hold and traction, and is showing up on common brands that you pick up at the store. And so I see that as a huge opportunity to talk about what we do, and also to sort of cross over, so that we're not all in our individual silos, that we can and that's partially why I sort of took a little step back from our ranch, because I took a job with a tech company to oversee regenerative agriculture for their real estate department. So, basically you see these successful CEOs, founders saying, hey, I've already bought and sold plenty of companies, and I can do it again. And this time I can use all of the profits for regeneration. So, essentially that's what we're doing at this company called Gala, which is a, blockchain entertainment company, nothing to do with agriculture, but we're working to promote bioregional food security and communities, food sovereignty, basically, in communities, so that everyone can have access to healthy, wholesome food, no matter who they are, no matter what their background or economic status. So that's really been a super fun project. And I think there's so many opportunities like that. And it's becoming increasingly more rare for people who have had sort of that background that I talked about, of, connecting to the wilderness and knowing how to use your hands and use your bodies. And it's not as valued anymore economically. Maybe it never was, but we can find other ways to value those skills if we sort of cross over into other sectors. And I feel like that's really needed. And also those of us who have that sort of background and that ecological and agriculture knowledge can be highly valued. And if we just sort of are able to direct our knowledge and our energy in a good way.
I find it interesting that agriculture today is similar to you running away to the big city, and you're the role of the Maori elder, trying to tell people we're going the wrong way, and we need to change. I think there's some parallels there. And so how do you see that the impact that you're making now, outside of your family's 15,000 acres? And I always thought this when I'd leave the airport, I'm thinking, man, I'm doing everything the best I can on my farm. And you fly over your farm and you look at it, and it's just a drop in the ocean compared to all of the land that's out there. How is that impact that you started on your family's ranch now progressing? What do you see happening as you take that message forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing would be if it continues on to the next generation, right? And we already have interest from some of our kids that they want a ranch, and of course I'm going to encourage them to go and travel and work for other people for a while, work on other ranches, go to Australia, Patagonia, wherever, and learn how other people do it, and then decide if you really do want to come back and have the passion to take it on. And hopefully they will, and hopefully they'll do a heck of a lot better than we did, and learn from some of our mistakes. So I really see that as the time that we're in right now for our business, is to say, hey, what, is this economically viable to hand on to the next generation? And for us, it's, as a mom and as a rancher and a speaker and an entrepreneur, I do a lot of hustling, right? And just do, we're very diverse in the kind of services we offer. And so we found that, we want every enterprise to stand on its own. So the grass-fed beef needs to pay for itself. And but because we're raising 4 kids in the Bay Area, one of our daughters out of the house now, but we've still got 3 in the house, and it's really expensive. And so we do farm to table dinners, corporate events. We work a lot with Natural Resource Conservation Service and the different programs, because the money that you make in agriculture isn't enough to reinvest in the type of infrastructure that you really need to seamlessly manage the ranches, like with cross fencing and water development and all of that. Things are just really expensive, and they're not getting any cheaper, to buy a truck, and things like that. So we're really creative in how we ranch, and that's sort of how we've gone about it. And I would encourage everyone right now who's in agriculture to engage with these other agencies and organizations, and collaborate for your own success, because that's what they're there for. And I just keep hearing, there is so much help and funding available for climate smart agriculture. It's oh, finally. And so much that they're just looking at ways that they can, mainly the USDA is looking for partnerships of how they can really invest in these farms and ranches through their different farm bill programs.
Do you think part of the problem is the way that we look at it? As a cattle rancher would think, oh, I'm a cattle rancher, or I'm a cotton farmer, or I'm an almond farmer, I'm a tomato farmer. They think of themselves as the crop that they grow, versus as I'm the steward of this property. So how do I create the most value of this property? And there's value in the food that I raise on this property, but there's also value in the, as you said, planetary health aspects of what I create on this property, whether it's ecosystem services for water quality, air quality, or habitat services for birds, or other animals on the property. And if I create that extra value, then I need to look at how do I connect that value to someone who is interested in it. So I have multiple revenue streams stacking on top of each other for this land that I'm stewarding, right? So you're no longer a cattle rancher, right? You're more of looking at how do every enterprise has to exist on its own, like you said, but how do I create more value streams coming in for the land that you steward? Is that
Yeah. I mean, I would say you're first a cattle rancher, and that's the reason why you can stack these other income streams on top of it. And if I had $1 for every email and phone call I got for somebody trying to come out and just volunteer and learn, I was like, I can't do it. Right. That's something we used to do that. We used to do workshops. We used to take on interns. It's like, because of labor law and time consuming and liability and things like that, it's like we just can't do it. But there's an opportunity right there. If somebody was passionate about sharing skills, I mean, people they don't have these basic skills anymore. And I worked a lot with Indigenous people, and one Lakota elder, Gilbert Walking Bull, would always drive home like, you need this primary education of, go out there and use your hands, learn to chop wood, build fence, and actually have this basic learning. It's like, who has that anymore? Not many, in California, especially not many people. You go to other regions that are more, ag centric, and you see it, but out here you just don't see it. And people want that. They were deprived of that in their childhood. Maybe their parents thought they were doing a good thing by keeping them protected and bubble wrapped, and now they're finding that they missed out, and now they want to go back in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. I get all ages, and really learn how to work with their hands and work with nature and animals, and just be out. I mean, there's nothing better than having your office outside with a beautiful view of cattle and nature and forest and grassland. So yeah, there's all different kinds of opportunities, but the only reason why we can do that is because we have a successful agriculture operation, and that is running. So I would say start there first, and then figure out what things you can add to that. And it's going to look different. It's going to look different for everybody. But for me, I love education. I love sharing the message. So that's really the route that I have gone, is getting certified to teach holistic management, and then work with these larger corporations to say, okay, you have a lot of influence in the world right now. So what are you going to do to use that for good? And when you talk to a lot of these executives or CEOs or founders, they really do care, and they're really ready to do something and be useful, and to utilize all the resources that they have at their fingertips to help, and to help the planet.
I really appreciate the fact that you're helping point them in the right direction. They want to do something, right? And
Yeah.
so it's good to see that you're helping to coach them in things regenerative. So what do you think are some of the biggest hurdles that individuals have to overcome to start seeing what they're doing and becoming more regenerative minded, if you will? Like you said, it's more the term du jour, but being more holistic in thought process. What are kind of some of those first steps for people who are considering, yes, I'm interested in soil health, I'm interested in doing what's best for the land and next generations, but just that kind of fear of change? How have you helped people work through that?
Yeah, I mean, it's scary. And if I were to get into this in my 50s and think that I could somebody said change, then I think it would have been a lot more difficult than since and then when I got into it, which was in my 20s, right? So, and that's what we're looking at with agriculture now. I mean, I'm sure you know, but the average age of the farmer is, probably upper 50s right now. So I think when you get to be in that stage of your life, it's like, why would you change? It's scary. There's a lot of risk. And I think, some, like, we were in the film Kiss the Ground, which made a huge impact for this type of agriculture. And now another film came out called Common Ground, the sequel, which again is really making big waves. And I've know the directors, they're good friends and they're wonderful. And but one of the things I would say is that sometimes it's, and they need to give that message of hope and like, we can all do it. But I relate with the farmer that just says, I'm kind of stuck in this box, and it's not their fault. Like, you never want to blame a farmer, because it's sort of the infrastructure and how things are set up around us that are really causing that restriction, and that ability of no change. So yeah, I think change is scary. And I would say to people that are considering making big changes to their agriculture operation, just start slow, maybe take one plot and reach out for help. Reach out to your local extension service, reach out to NRCS, and there's no reason why you should go at it alone.
There you go.
The AgEmerge podcast is brought to you by Ag Solutions Network. The ASN team is hands-on, digging in and invested in regenerative agriculture. Along with the proper plant nutrition and biologicals to boost your soil microbiome, we provide the ideas and implementation guidance to support you on your soil health journey. So stop farming the same way and contact Ag Solutions Network today at asn.farm.
So you did mention that, Kiss the Ground and Common Ground. And plus, I know you've been in other, short videos and movies and those kind of things. So we have a ranching movie star here. And I also must say, in the background, we always have those beautiful belted Galloways. So, they're the co-stars, right? So
Yeah,
talk to us what
absolutely.
that's been like to be a part of that, and the impact that you've been able to make through that.
Yeah, it's been amazing. I mean, I think we were the first farm that the directors of Kiss the Ground came and saw, and they wanted to really understand what it was like to be a family ranching. And so they came, and they were going to stay one day, and they ended up camping out on our front lawn and staying a week. So I think that experience was what was really great to see, like, oh wow, like what we're doing, you're actually really that interested in it. I mean, you've got like these really expensive cameras and all these people and production. It's like, is it really that special? So yeah, I think that was, it was an honor. I mean, it's always an honor to be featured in something like that, whether it's just a short little clip that's used for marketing workwear, or whether it's a more immersive documentary. And because then it got on Netflix, there was so much initial press with Kiss the Ground and outreach and opportunities. And so it really got me, I think, in front of people that I would never have had the opportunity to speak with. I mean, I spoke one-on-one with, at that time, Prince Charles, right? Now, when he was still the prince. And so it was really incredible. It's like, I was looking up at my grandma and just thinking, oh, she'd be so proud of me, right? And so things like that. It's just, it's really an honor. And I'm always, I just think people need to see more of that. They need to see more of healthy people outside doing things that are not only good for your health, good for your body, but raising kids with these values of being close to nature and working hard and learning what it takes to produce food and all of the intricacies and everything that that farmers and ranchers do to supply food, because it's very undervalued. And so documentaries like Kiss the Ground, where they, sort of the farmer is the hero in the movie. So I think we need to see more of that, and to really shift the narrative of how much we really value farmers and food and farmland. And I think everyone should watch it, and I think there needs to be a lot more documentaries about what we're doing.
Now they did go a little overboard on the Common Ground video. The hero thing just made me think of it when you said hero. Having
Yeah.
Gabe on the front with a red cape. I was like, oh, come on, man. Gabe's a friend of mine. Okay, so
Yeah.
I got a real kick out of that. So
Yeah. No, it's Hollywood marketing, right?
yeah. So no, I think really that movie, but also a lot of Netflix documentaries have made some significant impact on really considering how we do food. Some are
Yeah.
some are a little sensational, right? Or a lot sensational and kind of, but there's a lot of people telling the story. And if we don't tell the story, someone else will, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. Like, yeah, some of these documentaries, like one that we were featured in, was just a bunch of lies. And, it's a shame that people actually still they just believe it. It's like, oh, it's on Netflix. It must be true. So I would say, yeah, you gotta do your homework and do your own research and think for yourself.
And you must be an outstanding teacher because back to then Prince Charles, now King Charles, he did implement, if I recall, I saw an article on, I just passed over it briefly, but implemented regenerative practices on all of the king's land, if you will.
Yeah.
So you're a great teacher.
Thank you.
So, looking back and you've got another generation that you're training up now to, keep moving forward and regenerating the land. What do you hope to see in the next 5 to 10 years of how we are raising our food in harmony with nature?
Yeah, it's an interesting time. Right? I mean, the economy is suffering, and I'm sure you probably feel it. People are really concerned about how much things are actually costing. And so I think that bioregional food security is going to really be key going into the future. And what can everyone do to be a part of that? And how can we have more edge farms and urban farms and promote and support small farms, and so that it sort of takes the burden off very few people producing food for a lot of people. So in a sense, I feel like we really need to decentralize the food system. And how do we do that? I know in little pockets we're working on that, and you can go and go to your local farmers markets and basically get a full diet and right from a 50-mile radius, right? But that's very few and far between those places, and much of this country is still a food desert. And so I think that in order to really promote that decentralized regional food security, there needs to be more people in rural areas that are successful in farming and ranching. We need to create avenues that there can be more success, because if people are successful and they feel like what they're doing is really bringing in, supporting their families, supporting their basic needs, then they're going to be more likely to take a risk, right? They're going to be more likely to make some changes and to improve. If you're always just going month to month and trying to pay down farm debt, it's like you can't expect somebody to take a risk if they're in that situation. So I think having more value on farmers, giving farmers, I read something, that it's the lowest in, I think it's like a decade or maybe more, of the percentage of the dollar that the farmer is getting. So, I mean, it's pennies on the dollar that actually makes it to the farmer. And it's just, how could that be, right? And that's really why we started promoting this direct market agriculture. And it's not easy. There's a lot of overhead and a lot of moving parts to because the infrastructure is not set up for us to do that. It's set up for us to raise the cattle and dump them at the sale yard, right? And collect a check. And then you can easily account for your expenses and your hay, and it's straightforward, right? And so as soon as you're sort of stepping out of what's easy and what's set up and what's right in front of you, then you're having to recreate all of these different models, and you don't have the skills to do them, right? I mean, we never came to ranching with a background in business and marketing and accounting and sales and distribution and all of the many things that's needed to run a successful direct market ranch. So
and honestly, that's probably good, because had you known everything it would take, okay, same way, I'm 5-6 years into direct marketing business, okay, and had I known everything it was going to take, I probably would have second guessed it. I don't know.
I agree.
Would you have done the same thing and be like, wow,
Yeah.
this is a lot of work for not a lot of profit?
Yeah. If I actually knew my way around a spreadsheet and projections and financial planning and all of that, I'd been like,
Well,
maybe I should keep that off-farm job. Maybe I shouldn't just go all in.
and I think it's just a problem of knowing what to put into that spreadsheet.
Yeah.
It's a matter of there's just so many unknowns, and the current food system has everything so so cost effective. And you just look at, for example, when you go to processing, right, the processing costs we have per animal is 10x of what the conventional industry has, right?
Yeah.
It's because they're processing so many animals. They the money they make is more on everything but the meat,
Yeah.
So, and the small processor is only creating it to where we sell the meat, right? And we don't get all the other secondary products. So had you known, it's a good thing we didn't know, right?
Yeah,
Never
exactly.
would have
It's
had all this
true.
opportunity to be out in nature.
Yeah, it's a good thing I just like dive in with my heart and just kind of like try to figure things out as they go along. Wasn't easy. There was a lot of really stressful times where I worked really hard. I mean, just all through my 20s and 30s. And I'm 42 now, and I think I decided when I turned 40, I was like, you know what? This might not be the greatest thing for my body to be doing this, and I need to seek some more balance. So yeah, I think that we all have those times of transitions, and I don't regret anything.
But you would not have traded what you did, though, right? I mean,
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is I
definitely
worked
you would have done it again.
Yeah, I worked really long hours every day, but I wasn't away at some office working really long hours. I was at home with my kids, toting them along with me. And so I think that experience right there was highly valuable. I think one of my uncles, who's, really a very successful engineer for Boeing, basically said, my kids grew up not really knowing what I did. I just went and worked in some office, and your kids actually know what you do. It's tangible. They see it. They eat it. They drink the raw milk from, when you go out in the morning and milk the cow. And it's like, for a little kid, it's totally tangible. It's like, oh yeah, I know what mom and dad do. Whereas opposed to like, oh, what does your dad do? I don't know. Like, he's just gone all the time, right? So yeah, that's really highly valuable. And you see more and more people wanting to provide that opportunities for kids. And I think COVID gave people a really great opportunity to figure out what home is, right? Home is not only where you live and where you sleep, but it's really your sanctuary and your place where you can be creative, and you can connect with yourself, and you can connect with your family and your loved ones and everything around you. And it's just amazing the creativity I've seen since COVID, of people doing like incredible like artisan crafts and farm goods and things like flavors and tastes, and incredible plant and tallow-based skincare products. It's like, wow, this stuff's amazing. And it's and they're being really successful at it. So I think the more we can connect with ourselves, with nature, with really our own creativity, then the happier that we're going to be, and it's really going to lift up our whole community. So I would definitely encourage people, do not hold back. And you can start small and then expand, but follow that gut, follow that intuition and that creativity. And I think that's really going to propel us into the next 5 to 10 years, and honestly, I have no clue what's going to happen. I don't have that power to see into the future, and I can only influence my little sphere. And I hope that my influence is like a ripple in the pond, that that ring of influence goes out to more and more people. And so, just doing what I can with this beautiful, precious life that I have to share and to experience with people, and to work hard, and to, build soil, and really support the people that have been really historically underserved and really deserve more, right? I work in a very rural area in Costa Rica, down on the Osa Peninsula, and there's incredible women-led food sovereignty effort in these really remote rural areas. Like some you can only get to by boat, or crazy dirt roads that you're risking flash floods. And there's women there that have just incredible knowledge of plants and growing and medicine, and like it's incredible, and they've been undervalued, and their family has gone off. The men in their family have gone off to work on the plantations, the banana plantations or the palm oil plantations, in really dangerous conditions. And their children have needed to all summer and every day after school work on the coffee plantations just to sort of survive. But these rural areas are really close to my heart, and I feel like there's huge potential, and the time is right now, because that land continues to be converted to these industrial plantations. And it really breaks my heart, because it's in some of the most biodiverse, beautiful places on the planet that this is happening.
Well, like you said earlier, there is hope, though, right? With
Yeah.
all of us doing what we do best and realizing that we just have this one precious life to make it happen.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that encouragement that you gave everyone. Well, what else should we have covered today? Our time just flew by. Had a lot of fun. Anything else I should have brought up or asked about while we were together?
Gosh, I think we did cover quite a bit. I mean, I think that if anyone is in the California Bay Area, we do ranch days, and we'd love to have you out to the ranch and engage and visit us at the farmers market. I did write 2 books. So one is Dawn Again, Tracking the Wisdom of the Wild, and really outlines my journey to becoming a regenerative rancher. And the second book is Wolf Girl, which is the young adult version of Dawn Again. So really kind of goes into the adventure stories and ways that you can also find those similarities to my stories, because so much of us have similar experiences and feelings, or things come alive in us at certain times in our lives. And so I wrote this book so that people could really relate to my journey and see themselves in my journey as well. So yeah, would love for you to pick up those books. They can be purchased anywhere books are sold. And yeah, we're going into the holidays now, so really good time to yeah, to not only read but yeah, really share this message with your family and your loved ones, and dream, do a lot of dreaming.
Well, I certainly appreciate that suggestion, and we'll include the way to connect on those book titles and such in the podcast notes. Thank you so much, and thank you for all the work that you've done, not only in the land that you steward and the family that you raise, but in your greater outreach to the poor areas, like you mentioned in Costa Rica, to the wealthy individuals that want to do the right thing, and pointing them in the right thing to do. That's shaping the future, and really appreciate that, and making it all available for farmers and ranchers that want to do the right thing. And I think it's in the DNA of farmers and ranchers to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And yes, they are caught up in a system that has de-risked it or made it too risky to venture outside of that system. But there's also a lot of young folks that would love to come alongside them and take that risk if given the opportunity. So anyway,
Absolutely.
appreciate it. Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful holiday season, and looking forward to your continued impact on agriculture.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation.
All right. Take care.
All right.
Thanks for listening today. It's exciting to see how Doniga and her family have carved out such a beautiful life. Doniga's deep observation experience enables her to monitor grassland health, biodiversity, and to manage land based on the principles and patterns found in nature. And as always, if you'd like to learn more about what we're doing to help growers observe and implement soil health practices, check out our website at asn.farm. And there you can click on links to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. There's a lot of great things happening and always something to learn. Thanks for listening.